Hi, everybody. My name is Serene. I'm with P.E.A.C.E. We are so grateful to Mike for being here today, doing the presentation for us on virtual field trips. I'll let Mike explain a little bit about himself and how he got involved in doing virtual field trips with Sanctuaries out in the Ontario area. Mike and I connected because of the P.E.A.C.E. Humane Compassion for All Humane Education event, and he did a presentation for teachers on how to implement virtual field trips to sanctuaries in their class curriculum. So I'm very excited to have him here today for everybody to kind of share knowledge. We'll talk about a couple of things, and if you have any questions, please put it in the Q&A. So in the actual webinar, there is a section for questions and answers. So I will have that open, and me and Mike will do a buddy system with answering any questions during the presentation. And if I have any, I will ask him as well. So yeah, so I'll hand it over to Mike. You can go right ahead, and I'll mute myself here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Serene. It's really amazing to be here today. And I just have to say off the top, from my understanding, the people who are attending the webinar today, you're involved in sanctuaries, running sanctuaries, volunteering at sanctuaries, involved in some way. And for me, I have just over the last probably 3 years have started to visit sanctuaries. And to me, they're like the most sacred places on the planet. They really are. I always get a little teary, when I go visit a sanctuary, because I think, seeing the animals, but also seeing the people who are running the sanctuaries, it just, it really blows me away. In a world that animals seem to be exploited in every way imaginable, and then to go to these little, they're like, it's an oasis, and see the level of care that animals receive, it's really quite beautiful. So I just wanted to say it's a real honor to be here, and hopefully I can share, at least from a teacher side of things, what it's like on the education side, and trying to bridge that gap, between educators and teachers and sanctuaries. So yeah, I've been teaching for about 20 years now, middle and high school. Geography, which in Ontario just basically means environmental issues, politics, economics, demographics. So, it's not out of the realm to be talking about some of these things with my classes, but I'll talk a little bit more about my journey there in a second. So for me, I think I've been vegetarian for like 25 years, going back to the 90s, and that was mainly for environmental reasons. I wasn't really that in tune with animal protection in any way, just kind of more on the periphery. And then my wife and I adopted this beautiful little dog, Maggie, and we kind of learned that she came from this puppy mill. And then we started to make this connection between, other animals. We were eating eggs, for example, and we didn't really make that connection until this little beautiful little being stepped into our lives here. So, as a result of that, about a year and a half ago, I found this master's program through the Institute for Humane Education, which is looking at human rights, environmental ethics, and animal protection, and then like how those three intersect. And the animal protection piece was a big thing because it was just hard to find a place to study about animal protection. I don't know, it was really difficult. I don't know, maybe there's more programs out on the West Coast, but we looked far and wide and we were having trouble finding that. So, as part of this, I started looking more about how I could incorporate. I was doing a lot of work with human rights and environmental ethics, but really not that much with animal protection, here and there, but it was usually things that were kind of far away. It was like the shark finning, or the dolphin hunt in Taiji, Japan. So, but then I started looking at, well, what are ways that I can actually look at animal protection closer to home, And as part of that, this is when I started to visit sanctuaries that were around the Toronto area, and a little further afield too. Went to Farm Sanctuary as well in New York State, and again, that's where I was just so struck by the power of animal sanctuaries and what they, and I just decided that I wanted to, in some way, I didn't know what I was going to do, but I decided I wanted to give my students some experience of an animal sanctuary. So this is kind of the process I went through with my students, and I'll share the unit and kind of how I structured leading up to the virtual field trips with the sanctuaries. But we kind of went through, and it was for my own sense too. You don't have to, I mean, you guys probably already know all this, but this is the process we went through with my grade 7 students of trying to figure out, what are the different types of institutions that deal with animals. Anything from like a roadside zoo or a theme park like Marineland or SeaWorld, all the way to a sanctuary somewhere along that spectrum. And this was really interesting for me, but it was really interesting for the students too, to try and like start parsing this out. And the main thing I wanted them to walk away from this entire project was the virtual field trips and the project work was, I just wanted them to begin to question their relationship to animals. That was really the main thing. I didn't really have an idea of like, I want people to go visit the sanctuary, after this, or to become vegan, whatever. I just want you to kind of lean into our relationship to animals. So this was one of the videos I showed at the outset, and I mean, you all are involved in sanctuaries, so you know this, but I thought this was a really beautiful video that was done by Farm Sanctuary in New York State, just about kind of talking about more the philosophy and why sanctuaries can be powerful educational tools for others. So I'm just going to play this here.
Sanctuaries are a place where cruelty is met with kindness. It's about kindness to animals, but it's also about respecting others, respecting ourselves, respecting the earth, living in a way that doesn't cause unnecessary harm. We live at a time when there's immense oppression and strain and ugliness out in the world, and this harms all of us. The reason things are as bad as they are is because we have infrastructures and systems in place, and those need to be shifted. It actually undermines our empathy, and that's a very important part of our humanity. For me, and for many people, this begins with recognizing trauma and violence and cruelty in the world and not wanting to be part of it. These animals, like other animals, want to live. They don't want to be abused. They don't want to be killed. They don't want to be eaten. They want to live just like cats or dogs or us. We're all animals, and we all have pretty much the same desires.
Okay, so I showed a little bit more of the video to the students, but this was for the vast majority of them. Again, these are students in Toronto. They had never been to a sanctuary. They didn't really know much about them. So it was a nice way to start things out, to kind of set the stage, so to speak. So I had this idea a little over a year ago that I wanted to introduce my students to an actual experience of a sanctuary. So, I'd been to the Donkey Sanctuary of Canada, which is about 45 minutes outside of Toronto in Guelph. And I contacted a lot of sanctuaries that I'd visited, but unfortunately, pretty much everyone that I talked to did not have an education program in place that could handle students, other than the Donkey Sanctuary. And they had a full kind of field trip program, and they could handle, I had about 100 students, so they could kind of handle that number of students coming in, and they were going to be separated and kind of doing different things at different times. And I thought, this is great. This is a really nice. They've got a good setup here. School was really supportive of it. The students were excited. The parents were excited. And then, of course, the pandemic hit March, and all the field trips were canceled. So I had to really think, what am I going to do here? Do I just skip it, or do I try something different? So I started reaching out again to sanctuaries, and I said, listen, and the donkey sanctuary, first sanctuary I reached out to was them to see if they would do something virtually. And they, at that point, even though they had the physical thing set up, they weren't ready to do anything virtually. So fortunately, I talked to the Storybook Farm Primate Sanctuary, which is about an hour and a half outside of Toronto, and also the Happily Ever After Farm Sanctuary, which is about an hour outside of Toronto. And they both agreed to do, even though they had never done anything like this before. So that's really where we started. And I didn't know what I was doing. They didn't know what they were doing. And we managed to do some pretty amazing work together. But I thought I'd just show you a link here, or a little short video, just to give you a bit of a sense of what the sanctuaries look like, and to give you a sense of what, type of sanctuary I was working with. So I'm just going to exit out of that and open up. I'm going to make sure my sound is up here too.
They are so much like us. It's because of that that we should give them the freedom that they should have. I used to work in advertising, wear 4-inch heels, designer clothing. Now I clean monkey poop, and this is what that looks like. Cleaning the monkey poop. Welcome to Storybook Farm Primate Sanctuary, the home of 19 monkeys. I started volunteering here about 6 years ago, and then eventually I started doing more and more with the sanctuary. 4 years ago it was put up for sale, so I went on the board and helped with fundraising, then became a co-owner. You want to pick one? Oh, you can't have all of them. My mantra became failure is not an option. If we hadn't succeeded in buying this property, there was nowhere else for the monkeys to go. They would have had to be euthanized. The sanctuary now is my life. Whether they come from roadside zoos or whether they've been pets, this is the only other place for them to go in Canada. Rudy was in a storage container full of exotic animals that were going to be then sold, which unfortunately is legal in most of Canada. He was close to death when he was surrendered to us. He chewed off the hair of his tail. Now he's sort of a model squirrel monkey. It's great when they start doing things that they would do in the wild, such as, washing a grape in the leaf. It is so cruel what happens to them before they go to market. They are taken away from their mothers if they're being bred in captivity, and if they're being poached in the wild, inevitably the whole family needs to be killed because the family will protect the baby to the death. We have two of the most famous monkeys in Canada. Pockets is the diva. He likes attention, he's an artist. Pockets really took to painting. He's apparently one of the top 10 primates who paint in the world. Pockets does allow his artwork to be sold. Superheroes never fade. Dandelions, Homo sapiens. Darwin, he was called the IKEA monkey because he was found in an IKEA parking lot. Somehow he had managed to unlock the cage he was in. He was wearing a little shearling coat and a diaper. Caused quite the sensation around the world. He's very energetic. He has a great relationship with Pierre, our baboon. He's very strong. He can bend rebar. It'd be tough to change his diapers these days. Monkeys do not make good pets, but unfortunately there are still people who believe that they can be. See, that's what can happen. Even though you're being nice to them and you're giving them a treat, they can just suddenly turn. In 2016, there were 7,500 monkeys in labs in Canada. The lab monkeys that just arrived are Cody, Pugsley, and Cedric, and they're beautiful crab-eating macaques. It's the first time that lab monkeys have officially been allowed to retire to sanctuary. The day they arrived, it was raining, and so they really didn't know what it was, and because there was all this rain coming down on them. When we were releasing them from their travel cages, which were essentially 4x4x4, they did not look back. They just went for it. They didn't know what was ahead of them. They just went for it. We cried a lot that day because it was so great to see them just not question the opportunities that they were being given. Like, somehow they seemed to understand that it was going to be better.
Okay, I'm just going to stop it there. So that is Storybook. And just on a side note, so my wife and I have actually been volunteering there for the last 2 or 3 months as a result of getting involved with the sanctuary through the virtual field trip. So, and it's an amazing place. It's incredible. So nice to see all the primates there. And then the second sanctuary I was mentioning that that I worked with was, it was important for me to have a farm sanctuary as well. So I reached out to a few, and Steve and Derek from Heath's, from Happily Ever Esther Farm Sanctuary, they jumped on board, which was amazing. So for those of you who don't know anything about Heath's or Esther the Wonder Pig, they're actually making a Hollywood movie. I just found out about Esther, but that's going to be a little ways off. So I'll just do a little intro.
The best thing about Esther is her personality and her character. It's almost like dealing with a human. It changed pretty much every aspect of our lives, from where we work to our lifestyle. We gave up the use of all animal products after getting to know Esther and what her life could have been like if she wasn't with us. And it's been a wild few years that resulted in us giving up our careers and opening a sanctuary for animals like Esther, all farmed animals. Esther came into our lives via Facebook, actually, which is kind of ironic now looking back. And I got a message from a friend I hadn't spoken to in years and years that just said she knew I was an animal lover and asked if I wanted a mini pig. And went home the next day with this little 4-pound mini pig that was supposed to be 70 pounds. It turned out, obviously, that she was not a mini pig, and she grew to about 650 pounds. We noticed that Esther wasn't going to be the micro pig we were told she was the very first time she went to the vet. Esther is going to be 5 years old on July 1st. She currently weighs about 630 to 650 pounds, and she's about maybe 6 feet long. We definitely thought about having to give her up, not because we wanted to, but we weren't sure whether we could handle it. She was getting so big, so fast. At her quickest, it was 1 pound a day she was growing, and we lived in a town where she was illegal. We weren't even allowed to have a pot-bellied pig, never mind a full-size commercial pig. My reaction when we first found out she wasn't a micro pig was a real mixed reaction. I was furious for feeling like I'd been lied to. I was really upset about her, and this wave of guilt, I think it was, is probably the best way to describe it. Esther eats about 8 cups a day of a kibble that we have made for her and for the other animals, other pigs that live at the farm. It's high fiber and low fat to help kind of manage her weight. We decided to set up a Facebook page in December of 2014 or 2013. I can't even remember now. The years are just a blur. And it was a total spur of the moment thing. So all the artwork that we've got has come from fans. They've painted them themselves. I think this is one of the first ones we got that was painted actually via a Facebook photo that we had posted. Really, really amazing. It's been the most incredible experience. I don't know fully how to put into words what it's been like the last couple of years. It's been so overwhelming and surreal, probably is the best way to put it. You know, I mean, I wake up every morning and look outside to a 50-acre property full of animals that I had never even met, 2 or 3 years ago, all because of a mini pig. It's unbelievable.
Okay, great. Esther the Wonder Pig. And yeah, I think they've got about 70 or 80 animals there now. It's a beautiful place to visit as well. So in terms of the practical aspects, working with both, again, because we were starting from scratch, we didn't really know how we were going to do this. It took a while to kind of negotiate and figure out and go back and forth. And we decided, I mean, one of the big things was just the internet access and how to navigate that. So for Storybook, we decided to do a pre-recorded video tour, which was about 20-25 minutes. And then we did a live Q&A from Dinah. She's a woman, she's the co-owner of the sanctuary, from her home in Toronto, which worked really well. So that definitely had a different flavor from Heath's. And Heath's, It was supposed to be only about a half an hour, ended up going about an hour. But we decided with them, again, the internet was an issue, and we decided to do a live Q&A from inside their farmhouse, and Esther was there as well, which is amazing. And so we had 100 grade 7 students. We were using Google Meet. That's our school had decided to go with that, and we did them. Because we were trying to include all of the grade 7 students, and the way our school works is the grade 7 students are in different classes at different times in 4 different sections. So we had to actually do it after school from 2 to 3 p.m. Our virtual day went till about 1:30 or so. And I mean, I think there was about 2 or 3 students out of the 100 that didn't show up. So the people were really interested and excited about coming on. I'm just going to show you like super short clips of what the actual virtual field trip looked like, just to give you, it's not as polished as the CBC clip or the clip with Steve and Derek, but just to give you a sense of, this was part of the pre-recorded tour. You know, one of the aspects was the sound isn't that great, you know, so you might have to turn your sound up a little bit, but you'll get a sense of what I'm talking about.
Jenkins is a spider monkey, and they traditionally swing from tree to tree in the wild, and so you can see that he's highly equipped to do that. And so again, as part of the design of the enclosures, we give him places to climb, and so he can swing from area to area to get his exercise, and also to allow him to do behaviors that are instinctive to him. Would you like another one? Is that what you're saying? Would you like another one? Give me a nice boy. He wants to see what else I've got. Yeah, no. If I gave him the whole bowl, he would take the whole bowl. And there's Max. Hi, Max.
Okay, so that was just a bit of a sense of storybook. And then this was the live Q&A, a segment from the live Q&A with Steve and Derek from their living room. Oh, let's see. I think I clicked the wrong thing. Try that again. There we go. Perfect. Very good. Okay, Sebastian, you've got a great question. You want to unmute yourself there?
Yes. So I was wondering, like, because you've been here for like a good amount of time, I was wondering what your favorite moment of like being part of the sanctuary is, because I know it's like it means a lot.
Oh, I know what my favorite moment is. My favorite moment was when we first arrived here with Esther and offloaded her off of the trailer.
Yeah, mine too.
When we lived in Georgetown, in a small house with a small yard, and Esther was not small. She was 400 pounds at the time. And I just wanted her to be able to run, have that ability. We had a harness for Esther that we had made, and so we could walk her in the neighborhood, but it was super dangerous. People weren't used to seeing a pig being walked in the neighborhood. So people driving would slam on the brakes in their car, and they would reverse up the street and, you know, cause, you know, thankfully no accidents were caused, but we stopped walking her in the neighborhood for fear that an accident would happen. So she was just confined to our backyard, and our backyard was only 60 feet across, you know, your typical city yard. And Esther could not really run in the backyard. No. She could take a few quick strides, and that was it. So I imagined for the longest time, I just could not wait until she was able to run. And when we brought her here and she got off the trailer and she cut a line.
That very same day, like within a few minutes of getting off the trailer, she full speed, and we'd never seen her go so fast. We didn't know even that pigs could go so fast. And it's one of those things that these animals are capable of things that you would never think of, just because A, they don't typically get the opportunity, or B, you don't get the opportunity to see it. But yeah, seeing her run was amazing. I would say the same, that was my favorite moment, because she just, as fast as she could go and as far as she could go, she just ran full speed. It was amazing.
Okay, great. So we had, and again, I mean, we had the 100 students on the Google Meet call, and they could kind of unmute themselves and ask questions. And that one was only supposed to be half an hour. We ended up going an hour because Steve and Derek didn't want to stop. Esther was totally okay with sleeping for an hour, and the students just had question after question. It was amazing. So it wasn't just the 2 virtual field trips. So this was actually part of a larger project that took about 10 classes, 10 like 40-minute classes. And some of that was what we were talking at the beginning, like the video and kind of introducing students to the idea of sanctuary and how that might differ from a zoo, might differ from a shelter, and really kind of going deeper and deeper, leading up to these 2 virtual field trips. And then after the field trips, we started their year-end project, and I'll just show this to you. And I'll make this, maybe we can make this the link, Serene, we can make the link for the slides available, and this is hyperlinked in there, and this is public access. So this is basically the entire 10 period unit that has everything you would need to run it in terms of, you know, links to various student activities that I've created, all the embedded videos, kind of doing an introduction to sanctuaries, and then we even looked a little bit at the proposed whale sanctuary for Nova Scotia. We even looked at ecological, like plant reserves. And then we did a bit of a deep dive into preparing and researching these 2 specific sanctuaries. But then we came out the other side, and just go back to present here.
I'm pretty sure, Mike, sorry,
yeah.
just to interrupt you. The stuff that I have up on P.E.A.C.E. Humane's website for teachers.
Perfect.
I'm pretty
sure. Yes, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, on our website under P.E.A.C.E. Humane for virtual field trips or sanctuary trips, I have links of this, as well as I think on your YouTube page, like the YouTube video.
Perfect. Yeah, I really, and feel free to do whatever you want with that. If you want to make a copy of the slideshow, and then if you just want to use one period from that, or if you want to use the whole thing, or you want to just do whatever you want to do with it, and let me know how it goes if you end up using any of it. But it's from my perspective, it's pretty much teacher ready, and it could be adapted and maybe work within whatever sanctuary you're working with or running. And the neat thing was the end project for them, after doing all of the scaffolding work and doing the 2 virtual field trips, they actually got to choose in groups. They got to choose their own animal sanctuary anywhere around the world. And they did quite a bit of research on that and put together their own presentation and then shared that with the rest of the class. And the students, I mean, there was just this massive range of sanctuaries all over the place. Including, these are just some samples up on the screen here. And overall, I mean, it was amazing. The quality of work and how excited they were was incredible. So, and that's like the rubric for that and the assignment sheet, all of that stuff is in those slides that I was just showing you as well.
So yeah, that's a great resource. Like if you're doing, let's say you have a teacher reaching out to you and they want like a lesson plan to be attached to, let's say, a sanctuary tour themselves that they're doing with the sanctuaries. That's something great for them to use, correct?
100%, 100%. So sometimes teachers just want to do a one-off, like I'm looking forward to do a neat thing, or it could be just something fun for the school to do. But for me, it was part of it was like the year-end project. So we basically started at the beginning of May and we went all the way to June. And this is all we did. We were just talking about sanctuaries, and which was amazing. It was great. And I decided to do kind of pre and post survey to see what effects. So right at the beginning of that first period, I asked them a series of questions, and I just showed you a couple here, but one of them was like, rate your understanding of what an animal sanctuary is. We have 96 students responding. So most of them are kind of neutral. They can maybe have heard of one, but really don't know how it differ from other types of animal institutions. And then if we look at the post-unit survey, we had, you know, the vast majority chose a 4 or 5 that they had a good understanding or a very strong understanding what a sanctuary was and what it represented. And then I asked, well, you know, what was your main takeaway from all this? So we had quite a range, and I just chose a few here that showed kind of the variety of responses. But I learned how similar primates are to humans. I also was oblivious to the fact that was why they were used for experiments. I also realized that there are a lot of people that really cared and dedicated their lives to accommodate these animals, including folks on this call right now. My main takeaway was that farm animals can also be protected, since I always consider farm animals as stuff that we will eventually eat. And then definitely the online field trips. I listened to each and every one, and my entire family. It was so interesting to see the lives of the animals and their carers. It was an amazing opportunity to ask questions, interact with these two sanctuaries. And then I also asked them, what, given everything that we've done, is there anything you were inspired to do? So one student said we could start off with meatless Mondays and slowly eat less meat. I've also heard of burgers that are completely made of vegetables, like Impossible Foods. My family already makes sure to never buy product tests on animals, but maybe we could also cut down on meat, have it only one day a week or something. And I could refrain from going to places where animals are used as entertainment, like a circus. And I could only start buying makeup and facial products that have not been tested on animals. So again, you get kind of a range of actions that students I could take. And it was amazing reading through all these responses. I was so inspired by it. And so when the dust settled, when anything was done, I kind of took a step back, and in speaking with the sanctuaries as well. And I realized, actually there was a lot of advantages of doing these field trips online. What seemed to be a problem when the pandemic hit, it was like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? All my plans are thrown out the window for the donkey sanctuary. It actually, I think, was a blessing in disguise, for a few reasons. Like, at least here in Ontario, we are definitely still in the throes of the pandemic, and virtual field trips are really the only option now. And, who knows for how long that's going to be. You can go anywhere in the world, and I'll show you a couple of examples of other virtual field trip opportunities for sanctuaries in Central America and Florida, etc. And then a lot of sanctuaries, and it'd be interesting to hear from you, maybe when I'm done, is just what experience you have working with schools, if any. But my experience was, at least around Ontario here, there wasn't really a lot in place already. So the virtual aspect is a lot easier to set up than the in-person. And, probably most importantly, it's probably better for the animals in a lot of ways. Having 100 students, grade 7 students, kind of descend on a sanctuary can be overwhelming. And I know, at least from the sanctuaries I've visited, that's always a delicate balance of how much do you open it to the public, how much stress is that putting on the animals, but there's all the educational component as well. And then finally, for the school, this is a big thing, and for teachers, we're always under strain for money, I saved a massive amount of money. We ended up making significant donations to both sanctuaries, and we can talk more about that. But in the end, in terms of like the renting the buses and getting supply teachers and all that stuff, we actually saved quite a bit of money that way. So that was a big plus. And then this is just, I actually gave them some options, but there are other organizations that are really ramping up these virtual field trips, especially, during the pandemic. This is a great organization called Exploring by the Cedar Pants. It's run by a former elementary teacher who lives in Ontario. And he's basically running 4 or 5 kind of sessions a day. Some of them are guest speakers, some of them are actual virtual field trips, but I actually gave this option to my students to do this on the side, and a number of them did it. So there was going to see northern white rhinos in Kenya, a turtle hospital in Florida, the toucan rescue ranch in Costa Rica, where they saw sloths and toucans and owls. And they kind of have their own virtual field trip experience as well. And then Farm Sanctuary, they're doing live virtual presentations. They also have 24-hour webcams, which is just kind of neat for students to go and visit. I don't know if any sanctuaries, anybody on the call is doing something like webcams, if that's even possible. Barn Sanctuary, they've started their own virtual field trip program. They also do Facebook walkarounds, and then they have this reality TV show, which I haven't seen, but I've heard is quite good. But there's ways of getting the message out without having physically, people to go to the sanctuary. Elephant Sanctuary, they've started their own virtual field trip program. That's in Tennessee. This was a neat one. This was the Best Friends Animal Sanctuary in Utah. They have a lot of dogs there, but some other animals too. They've done a virtual reality. It's a pre-recorded virtual reality walk-around tour. It's about 10 minutes, I think. So, Google Cardboard is it's like 10 or 15 bucks per headset. That's a really interesting thing. You could maybe do that with students. I have no idea how to make a virtual reality video, but they've done it. They figured it out.
Well, Farm Sanctuary
yeah.
has it too, actually, for their Humane Educator group.
Yeah.
They go in and they have the headsets, and all it is on the phone. It's a YouTube video that they just put in there and turn it on.
Yeah.
So it's not that hard.
It's really cool, right? Like you don't need any special software like with the Google Cardboard. You know, I've got a few of those headsets I've used with my students. We did swimming with dolphins. That was part of when I was looking at the Taiji dolphin hunt, but they have this way of interacting with dolphins that you don't need to go with these swim with dolphin programs at these resorts, which are very bad for the dolphins. So you could actually do it virtually, and they would just pop their phone into this little cardboard headset, and there you go. And this one was kind of similar. It was this beautiful, you put your phone in the headset and you're just walking around this beautiful
and it feels
sanctuary.
like you're like right there. And I think that one with Farm Sanctuary, it's like you start off from the point of view of the chicken, and then you get out of the crate, and then you can look around at the sanctuary. So the kids,
incredible.
It's really cool.
That's something to think about. You know, that would be an interesting thing to look into, to see again, especially with the pandemic. There's a lot of things that are emerging that are kind of workarounds for, you know, given that these visits are difficult, you know, now. So the virtual reality is definitely, and I know a lot of educators are using, especially with these really cheap headsets, the Google Cardboard and such. And then there's a lot of these live cams that I know some teachers have been using. That's not really a sanctuary. It's like going right into the wild, but, you know, including a couple in BC there. So I know some elementary teachers on the last session I done, they had used them just every day. They'd start off the day and click on the live cam and see what was going on. So that was an interesting way as well. And that's it for me. I'm really interested to see if anybody has any comments about that, or questions or criticisms about Whiz Running. Again, I just have to say, like, we did not know what we were doing at the beginning of May. It was a difficult time, and so we were really flying by the seat of our pants. So if anybody has like any experience that they've had working with school groups, either in person or virtually, I would love to hear anything.
Well, I think I can comment, because I know Karen here from Kindred is commenting as well. They do offer a virtual animal assisted program at their sanctuary, and I know they do have a virtual one here in BC that they do for classes. I know we did a pilot with them, and I know from talking to teachers and trying to do this pilot for at a sanctuary tour themselves, it was really hard, because even other sanctuaries that we were trying to see of who can offer these in on location tours before COVID, there was nothing really set up anywhere, because the main objective was to find something as an alternative to petting zoos, because I know, especially as a parent myself, going to pumpkin patches and always having to have a petting zoo stuck to it, or for schools, coming to the classroom field trips and things like that. So I was looking for alternatives. And I will comment on the school buses. That is a huge cost for schools, and it is a really hard thing for them to kind of pay for. So having these virtual field trips is actually, like all the things that you mentioned, is very helpful regarding also the animal aspect of not having it be overwhelming for them, correct? Right. So Kieran says, to help with the cost, we asked donors to donate $100, and then the class can come for free. So I know, I think I've seen some sanctuaries do offer, like as I mentioned on P.E.A.C.E Humane, we have the list of all the sanctuaries that we could find that are offering virtual tours to promote to teachers. I know some are offering a cost to it, and some are offering it for free. So people can go on there and see what people are asking for, to kind of get an idea for themselves. But I guess because it was pilots, you just donated whatever money you were going to use for the field trip.
That, I mean, I don't know, maybe it was a Canadian thing, but we were really struggling with getting a price. It was like, I don't know, what do you want to charge? What do you want to pay? You know, we went back and forth, and I was like, I had no idea. And it was in the Toucan Rescue Ranch in Costa Rica. They had an interest. I mean, they were charging $10 a head for students, and they still do that. So they have their own kind of system. And so I went for the storybook. I managed to get $1,000 donation from our school to them, because it was a lot of work, and for Dinah to kind of like figure this out and get the video done and pre-recorded, and they had, and and then weather was an issue, and I don't know again what the norm would be for, and for different schools might have different constraints, but I just threw that number out as the $10 per head. I thought that was interesting, and again, just for running the trip to the donkey sanctuary was going to be, I think, over $3,000. It was going to be like $3,500 or something. So the money was already allocated in the budget before the pandemic hit. So it was easy to sell that to the schools. Like, listen, I'm going to be saving you a couple $1,000 bucks.
Yeah, and I think the hard thing that I had a conversation before is sometimes some schools have more money allocated to them, right? Like with their PACs being really good with fundraising, and then some schools are it's very hard. Like I know Farm Sanctuary in New York, they offer all their classes for free because they're but they have a really good, they're very established, right? Like, and they have a really good donation base, and they really want to get the message out there. But I know that even for sanctuaries, just doing the on location, coming to the sanctuary, it was around $10 that they were asking. And as a mom myself, that's what parents are paying. They're paying $7 to $10 for these field trips every time your kid goes out. So honestly, that's a very common number, I would say.
Yeah.
So that was Carrie, we had somebody ask that question as well to discuss the school donations and how that can be addressed. So I guess it's to the discretion of the sanctuary themselves, really.
I think so at this point. I mean, I was searching around trying to figure out if there was some this is a standard thing, like there's 10, but I was really struggling until I found the toucan, the one in Costa Rica. But I think it's just to negotiate, and Serene, it's a great point. Maybe have some type of sliding scale depending on what the funds are of the school. That might be helpful too. And then
or you can leave it up to the teacher and just say by donation. And we recommend, I think the SPCA recommends about when they were doing the in-class to like $5 a child. But they were doing it's a 30-minute presentation that I watched at one point. So it really depends on what you want to do. And I think one thing that I really like, we do have one more question here, but one thing that I really like is that, let's say a lot of work does go in for the sanctuary to make that video, the first off. There's a lot of things that at the start is a lot of work. Go and do that tour. But then you have that video of that tour that you did ready for every class, right? And so all you need to do is send them the link to the video every single time, and then just have a Q&A at the end if that's what you want to do. So it doesn't have to be a hard thing to do.
I couldn't agree more. I kind of had the same thought, like with Storybook, for example, the Primate Sanctuary, having it, I look at that first video they did as almost like a draft, like it was just, again, we were flying by the seat of our pants. And we know that the length was good. It was about 25 minutes. That was perfect for grade 7 students. Dinah went around and visited each primate and kind of told their story. The flow of it was great. And if we were going to do it again, we would probably do a better quality video, and one that wasn't, because she was kind of referring to my students and to me a couple times. So we do a more generic one that exactly like you're saying was ready to go out of the box. And that would be part of it, and then maybe a live Q&A after or something. 100%. Yeah. So that her caught, because there was so much effort that went into figuring that out, and then but now it would be a lot easier to do.
Yeah, and you can even do a call out to your followers to see if there's any professional videographers or anybody who's willing to come do it for you for free. Or you can apply for grants, because I'm sure there's some grants, especially if Veg Fund grants and things like that, especially if you use it as an educational tool to spread the message of compassion as a selling feature, especially during COVID. And you can offer it even to homeschool groups, because I think people overlook sometimes homeschool groups and things like that too. So there's a big, even publicly, you can offer it publicly to parents. Because I do feel like with COVID especially, I feel like we're getting to that point again where probably kids are going to probably at some point have to stay at home again. So having an option for parents to come and like do something for their kids, like Farm Sanctuary did back in the time, is also something to consider. Like it's just something you can consider and say, donate, like it's by donation. Here's the link for the donation.
Yeah.
That's kind of a nice thing too. I do have a question that I'm sorry it took so long for us to get to. Thanks for the interesting information. I'm not a teacher, but I'm curious whether you ever run into pushback from parents who fear you're trying to veganize their children or turn them into animal activists.
Yeah, that's a really great question.
I think the teachers even had that question. They were
yeah. I mean, I might be specific to the school that you're in. I'm very fortunate. You know, I have an administration that's super supportive. That might not be the case for all schools. I think part of it was the way I approached it. I really, again, I said at the beginning of the session, all I really was asking the students was to just question their relationship to animals, you know, because I mean, even for me, I'm learning new things pretty much every day about like, oh, I'm still enmeshed in that system to varying degrees in ways that I hadn't seen before. And so as opposed to kind of coming in with a heavy-handed approach and going hard on, you know, veganism, or I really tried to make it more about just celebrating animals that we usually don't celebrate, like lab monkeys and like farm animals. You know, they're just seen as products, right? They're things for us to use. It was interesting. For the primate sanctuary, a student of mine I know that her mom does animal testing at our Toronto University, and I was very kind of worried about that, you know, because we did quite a big deep dive into the ethics of using primates in research, and she was actually, you know, quite supportive of the thing, and she understood, because I mean, it's also, you know, people are human beings and they're grappling with this as well, and you know, it helped for this student and for her mom. I was kind of hearing through the student, the mom's reaction, but she was really supportive of this, you know, and going to the Storybook Farm Primate Sanctuary. So, you know, having said that, but again, it's a great question, and I guess each teacher is going to have to suss that out with, you know, what is the parent body like? What is the administration like? What are I'm very blessed. I have amazing co-teachers that were really open to the idea. So I didn't have any pushback that I knew about. I mean, maybe people were talking behind my back about it. You never know, but nothing that came to the front. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can at least comment too from my side, from just attending a couple of speaker events with other humane education groups and things, that it is a concern, but I think the huge thing is wording choice as well, because especially if you're going to go into the younger crowds, if you're doing a presentation for a kindergarten class, it's completely different wording that you would use for like a high school class, right? So, and different questions and how you would word things. I know that some groups are very active with actually pre-talking to the teacher if there is any concerns of any word choices. So you can think of a teacher as kind of like your buddy and who will help you out, especially if we're doing pilots and you're wanting to try things. You can contact me, because there are teachers who are vegan, who are more open to having a little bit more of a trial and working with you on trying to do these, like what Mike did, right? Like that's what we need. We need individuals, teachers who want to teach this and want to bring this forward as an option. So yeah, so that's my only advice with that, is it's very much word choice. And I think there's this new article from Sentient Media that we just shared with regards to the importance of sanctuaries. And the thing that Farm Sanctuary did, kind of like what do you call it when, oh, I'm totally having a brain fart. And I just said the word fart online. It's like the analytics where you go and you, what do you call it? Like you do like a survey, that's the word. we're a survey with people who attended, I'm sorry, who attended sanctuaries and seeing the impact it had with regards to meeting animals. They found that if your approach isn't judgmental and it's all about just educating and wanting to, and like coming from a side of compassion and wanting to be a voice and tell the animals stories, right? Like they're there to tell their stories and open people's eyes. I think as long as we approach it from a compassionate point of view, in a sense, like do an Earthling Ed's kind of approach. I think we're with that. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. You know, and I think I think there's a lot of teachers out there that it's a good question that you brought up, like that are afraid, but the more people that do this and the more sanctuaries that, you know, even Serene, you posting this on your website, all these different, like that's going to help to shift this conversation where people can kind of, you know, aren't afraid of being able to talk about, this stuff, to normalize it. And you know, in my classes for 20 years, I've spoken about the most horrific things you can imagine, and you know, environmental devastation, genocide, in human rights abuses. You know, but this topic is seen as a taboo, you know, and so we're just dipping our big toe in the water right now, trying to figure. And that I was very conscious about choosing sanctuaries, and not really showing any graphic images. Not, you know, for me, it was very much kind of this celebratory approach. I don't know. And again, you know, like you're saying, with a high school class, I might do it differently and try, you know, and I've shown like the code to my students, which is looking at the dolphin. It's quite graphic, and it's a delicate thing to navigate, but I think the more people like yourselves that are, you know, even coming on this call today is so powerful, and showing other teachers that, you know, that this can be done, and you're not going to lose your job. You know, I think people are terrified of, like, you know, I know I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. And I was so pleasantly surprised by just how civil people were about it. So it's great. You know, it's great.
Yeah, and I think that's we just have to get over that fear. I know, especially for me as a mom, like getting more vegan options at the school. I was so afraid to send an email being like, hey guys, like, can you add more vegan options? But all I did was, I wasn't judgmental. I didn't say anything mean. I just put facts down saying, like, look at the Canada Food Guide, look at the environmental damage. I linked to articles. And now the PAC was completely like, yeah, no, that makes sense. Okay, we'll add at least one vegan option. And it starts with that one, right? Like you just have to do that one, and then the next parent will ask again, and then we'll add 3 more. And that's just how change happens. But we have to take those first steps. And that's why it's so important for sanctuaries to offer these options. It's not just an amazing way to also promote what sanctuaries are actually here for, right? To promote that compassion for farmed animals, and spread the message and share their stories, the animal stories. But it's also offering parents and teachers who want to kind of help facilitate this change and have alternatives to farm days, and having different corporations come in and do these things that they come in, talk about animal ag at schools. We want alternatives. And so the only way to do it is to have sanctuaries and people like you coming out, and teachers willing to facilitate that change. So I really, really appreciate you coming on today, doing this talk. I know I had a lot of fun talking to you before, so it's kind of like, yay, can continue to do this. So yeah, we'll keep them. Is there any other questions? If you can please put it in the Q&A. I do want to point out, like, that I know we did touch base about it at some point, but why places like Barn Sanctuary can do these great farm sanctuary tours and even virtual walkarounds is because they have Wi-Fi hotspots. And I think that's something that a lot of sanctuaries don't have. And that's why the alternative of just doing a pre-recorded, really wild quality video that does kind of like a tour is really helpful. And I really appreciate that idea that you gave, Mike.
And I just put in the chat there. I think, Serene, you're going to post maybe the link, but in case people wanted to get the link to the slides.
Thank you.
And that that's kind of all encompassing in terms of even the unit that I done, that's all in there. So that's really the only link you need. You can kind of go through that and take whatever you want and leave whatever you don't want. So
yeah, I did on the P.E.A.C.E Humane, and I think on your YouTube video as well. I did link I made a PDF version of your slideshow.
Perfect.
And I just put it up.
Perfect.
So that for teachers, so that they could have like a school plan. So yeah, if any teachers ever want anything, you can also direct them to P.E.A.C.E Humane, or they can email us, and we're happy to help them as well if there's any questions regards to options. But yeah, thank you so much, Mike. It doesn't look like we have any more questions. Good luck with your snow going on over there. Hopefully the electricity doesn't go out.
Yeah, thank you. And again, folks, that I feel quite, insignificant being on a call with people who are involved with sanctuaries, just given how incredible the work you're doing. It really is. It really, from a teacher perspective and seeing the effect it had on my students, you are doing just amazing work. It's so important. It's such an important part of this education piece. And so the more we can bridge that gap between schools and sanctuaries, it really had a massive impact on my students. I saw that from their reactions, but also the surveys. And don't underestimate just how powerful that can be. So thank you so much for all the incredible work you're all doing.
And thank you, Mike. Like, this is knowledge share is very important. So I really appreciate you coming on and everything that you're doing. And good luck with your class as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.